Om Namah Shivaya. Today's topic is the 5 paths of yoga. The problem we have with yoga is there are thousands and thousands of practices, and it can be really confusing when you try to understand how this fits into a whole. On top of that, there are many parallel traditions in yoga that have evolved over thousands of years, and each tradition has a different angle for each practice or each path. So all this can be again very confusing. So to help us bring some clarity into seeing the whole picture when we address specific practices, then it's very helpful to use this classification of the 5 paths. So what else did I want to say about this? Obviously, in a few minutes, this can just be an oversimplification of the whole system of yoga, but that's how we start. Also, this video will be very helpful to understand many of the future videos to come about the teachings, because I will approach most topics and subjects about yoga or about life in general in the light of these 5 paths. It's 4 plus 1, that's why I said 4 at first. So the first one is called Jnana Yoga. Each of these paths address a different part of our being, and here it's all about using our intellect and will to reach the goal of yoga. And the way we look at this goal from the viewpoint of Jnana Yoga is to find out truth. And the ultimate truth, philosophically, from the viewpoint of Jnana Yoga and Advaita Vedanta, is to find our true self. So the basic question is, who am I? What is my true self? And the path of Jnana Yoga is said to be the fastest path of yoga, but also the most difficult. Very difficult to maintain at all times. But it's fascinating in itself. So for the intellect and will, if you want to develop those two, then you should definitely spend some time on the practice of Jnana Yoga. Next is Bhakti. Bhakti, on the other hand, addresses the heart, and it's all about developing pure love. But of course, love means many different things. So here we are talking about the pure love, or prem, love without any conditions. And this is the development of devotion to the Supreme Being, to a manifestation of God or a goddess. So there are many in the tradition of yoga / Hinduism, 33 million they say, and one chooses an aspect, a deity or an aspect of God that we relate to the most, and then we try to develop we try to develop that love fully with no restraint. And so the goal of this path is pure love and perfect devotion. Next comes Raja Yoga. So Raja Yoga, the royal path, is about controlling our mind. And it's called the royal path because if you can truly control your mind, you become the king of your own life, the king of your own mind, and the king of the world, basically, as far as you are concerned. So it's not about having power over others, it's about exercising power over our own minds. So this is the psychological path. In order to control our mind, we need to understand how it works, how it functions in many ways, and to be able to bring it to perfect stillness. There are actually 2 aspects to Raja Yoga. The one during the yoga practice, which the main practice of Raja Yoga is Dhyana or meditation. So during meditation, the goal is to come to perfect stillness. And in our daily life, the goal of Raja Yoga is equanimity, trying to remain even no matter what. In life, many good things happen to us, many bad things happen to us. And we tend, if we are not careful, to get very elated when things go well and depressed or miserable when things don't go well. So the Raja Yogi can maintain evenness no matter what happens. You do something good for somebody, they don't thank you, it doesn't affect you. Because you are not functioning on that plane. You are just doing everything for the sake of righteousness, but also keeping the mind even. The next path is the karma yoga. So karma means action. So it's a yoga of action, and it's the art of acting totally selflessly. So selflessly means not for your own interest. And if you push it one notch further, it's egolessly. So even your ego doesn't feel I am doing this action, but I am just the agent. The action is happening through me. So this yoga can be practiced all day long, because it's all about adapting the yoga practice to the daily life. So every action you do, you try to do it in that spirit of karma yoga, which is in essence, you do the action the best way you can, and you surrender the fruit of the action. So if you have done your best, no matter what the results, great success, great failure, everything in between, it doesn't affect you, because you just focus on the action, not the result, not the fruit of the action. So of course it's difficult to perform even one action truly selflessly, truly egolessly, but like all the other yogas, you know, they are essential, fundamental. So even if you make a little progress on that path, it goes a long way towards improving your spiritual growth and your growth as a human being. So these are the 4 paths which are more classical, we could say, and they were delivered to the world by Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda was this great yogi who brought yoga to the West, and in his books, this is how he laid out the whole foundation of yoga, with a lot more explanations, of course. But one is left out, which is quite important. It's a whole tradition, which we can call, for the sake of yoga, Kundalini yoga. But Kundalini yoga really is just an aspect of the greater teachings of Tantra. So Tantra is a tradition that comes from the tantric scriptures. And unfortunately in the West, whenever you say Tantra or tantric, everybody thinks about sex, because there is, you know, the big philosophy or the theory of Tantra is that you have to bring spirituality into life and life into spirituality. And there are no really differences there. So sex obviously is part of it. So it has not been excluded from Tantra. Whether the other 4 paths, which belong more to the Vedic traditions of Hinduism, are more religious-like in many ways. So Tantra is just embracing life, the good and the bad, actually, equally, which most people forget. But if you think about, when you hear the word Tantra, if you think about sex, you miss the point completely, because it's really a very small portion, much less than 1% of the whole teachings of Tantra. So think equating Tantra with sex is very much as equating Catholic faith with drinking wine. So there is drinking wine in the Catholic lifestyle, but it's so small that it's not even worth mentioning. So it's a bit, it's a funny analogy there that I found. So what is Tantra about? First, Tantra comes from this group of scriptures, the tantric scriptures, which are outside the Vedas, which belong more to the system, if you want, of the whole Hindu religion. And it's a path of the mystics. And generally speaking, Tantra yogis are less traditional, less orthodox. So they are the rebels, the misfits, if you want. Those who don't care about conventions. And they do some practices, they want some result, and that's it. So it's the path of the wild. So there are 2 different greater directions of Tantra. The general idea is to connect and awaken and access the dynamic power of the divine. It's called Shakti. In Tantra, you have two aspects of the divine. One is consciousness, which is passive, underlying everything, and then power, which is Shakti, which is a dynamic power of life. So everything you see in the world, which has life, which has movement, is powered by Shakti. So one aspect is when you access this Shakti, or this universal, infinite power outside yourselves via ritual, mantras, and many other techniques. And the other one is when you want to address or to awaken this power, this Shakti, within yourself. So we have in ourselves a source of infinite power, which is called Kundalini Shakti. So the whole branch of Kundalini Shakti, all the teachings of Kundalini Shakti has one major goal, is to awaken that power and to let it manifest as fully as possible. And this is going to enhance not only your meditation and your spiritual life, but every aspect of your life. So that's a long topic, I cannot go in depth into this, but there are different branches of Kundalini Yoga, one of them being mantras, for example, one of the most famous, and well known nowadays and practiced is Hatha Yoga. So Hatha Yoga actually is a tantric practice coming from the tantric tradition, and it's all about, at the essence, if you read the scriptures, at the essence it's all about awakening the Kundalini Shakti. Of course, Hatha Yoga, including its sub-practice asanas, yoga postures, can do much more than that. So many people practice Hatha Yoga or practice yoga postures with different goals than awakening the Kundalini Shakti. But for the most part, when you do asanas, it falls under Kundalini Yoga. There is another aspect of asanas or yoga postures, which falls under Raja Yoga that we saw before. So in Raja Yoga, you want to control the mind. So the yoga postures come as an extra, and the breath as well, the pranayama. So some techniques of Hatha Yoga comes as an aid to Raja Yoga. Because if you want to control your mind, it's very helpful to first control the physical body, and the asanas help doing this. Whereas pranayama, the breathing, helps you control the breath. Once you control the body and you control the breath, the mind is going to be much more cooperative in your attempt to be still and calm. So that's generally the big picture here. Let me see if I forgot something. So in conclusion, I want to say there are many different traditions out there, and some masters, some gurus and their tradition focus on one of these specific paths, and they go all the way, very specialized. And of course, other masters will focus on a different way. So there are different groups or different individual gurus who teach from different paths. Some combine 2 or 3 of these paths. In the tradition I belong to, which originates from Swami Vivekananda from North India, from Rishikesh, then we practice what's called the yoga of synthesis. Some have called it integral yoga, where for complete development of your personality and of your human being, you want to combine all of them. So what is advised usually in the first couple years is to practice some of each of these 5 paths. And then, so like this, there will be no imbalance in your development. But each of us will have an affinity for a specific path or a specific practice. So while having a foundation of the 5, you may want to spend much more energy and time into working into the yoga that is the best for you, that you relish the best, and that you are the better at, you could say, and to go with it. But we still advise to practice all of the 5 there and one more, but don't specialize too early. Generally, it's better to have a strong foundation with the 5 paths and then to go with the one that works better for you. Okay, that's about it. So again, I will use this video as a support for many of the upcoming teaching videos, and I will refer to it many times. And if you have just a general, very basic understanding of these 5 paths, it will help you bring much clarity to every topic of yoga, or any topic of self-improvement, really, even outside yoga. So feel free feel free to leave some constructive feedback or questions in the comments, and I will hopefully learn from them, and I will also address any questions or requests you may have. Om Shanti.